Good morning, students. Welcome back to online teaching. It has been almost a year since we started online teaching due to pandemic, and for time being, we will continue with the same. We studied ancient Indian history last year. This year, we are going to study the medieval period of Indian history. Broadly, the period from the 9th century CE, that is Christian era, which we have studied last year, till the end of 18th century CE is considered to be the medieval period of Indian history. In this lesson, we are going to study the sources of medieval history. Now, so first chapter is sources of history. History gives us a chronological, scientific and systematic account of past events. Chronological, in a systematic order, in a chronology, in an order, date wise. And history is, it's a scientific subject, a systematic account of past events arranged in proper order. 4 factors are very important from the viewpoint of history. They are individuals. Individuals means a person, like Mahatma Gandhi. He was an individual who played a significant role in India's freedom struggle. Society is a group of people involved in a movement. Place where a particular incident happened, and time, which year, at what time the incident happened. So these 4 things are very important: individuals, society, place and time. Like India got independence on 15th August 1947. India is a place, time is 1947. Society means entire Indian population, and individual means Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Mahatma Gandhi, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. These important individuals played a very important role. History must be based on authentic evidence or proof. See, we need authentic, real. History cannot be written on basis of imagination. We need to corroborate things. We need, records to prove what has happened in past. All these things are arranged in chronological order, in sequence, to write and understand history. This is very important. And all these proofs and evidences are known as sources of history. Like, if we speak about Gandhiji, his, stick, his specs, chashma, anak, his loincloth, dhoti, or his spinning wheel, charka, or Sabarmati Ashram, where he stayed, or Mani Bhavan, a place where Gandhiji stayed and did all his activities. So this is how actually, with authentic record and proof, we try to arrange these things to come to a proper conclusion. This is how history is written. We have to consider many factors related to historical event that we want to study. It is necessary to support our study with historical sources. We need proof. We need, people, we need certain material. All these sources are clubbed together, corroborated, and then we come to a conclusion. These sources have to be verified. See, spinning wheel. It is very important to understand Gandhiji, but then we have to prove that a particular spinning wheel was used by Mahatma Gandhi. This spinning wheel belonged to Mahatma Gandhi. There are numerous number of spinning wheels, but which one was used by Mahatma Gandhi? We have to authenticate it. If you go to Mani Bhavan, the room where Gandhiji stayed, you will find his spinning wheel placed in that room, because he used to sit on ground and did most of his spinning work, writing work, study work. This is how we try to bring things together to understand and write history. These sources have to be verified. We have to see whether they are authentic. Authentic means real. It is necessary to use these sources judiciously and only after a critical analysis. We have to go into detail. Every single thing has to be minutely observed. And then only we can come to a conclusion, and or we can draw a conclusion that collected things are authentic. They belong to a particular person, to a particular period. That is how actually history is written. Forts have an important place among material sources. See, Shivaji Maharaj, a great nation builder, as he dreamed of Swaraj, and when he fulfilled his dream of Swaraj, these forts played a very important role. There were more than 300 to 400 forts which actually played a major role in the making of Swaraj. Some forts were hill forts on top of hill, some forts were on plain land, and some forts were sea forts. Sea fort like Alibag, Janjira fort. It is known as a sea fort. And Sinnagar, Lawgarh, Vijayadur, Padmadur, number of them. So these forts, when we discuss about forts in Maharashtra, that means we are trying to recollect, understand history of Maharashtra during time of Shivaji Maharaj. Some major types of forts are hill forts, forest forts, and sea forts, and forts on the plains. Monuments, important places like samadhis, where an important person is buried, or for that matter graves. Veer Gala, what is a Veer Gala? Veer Galas or Veer Gala, known as martyrs' stones, were erected between 5th and 13th century AD under the Yadav and Shilhara dynasties. These were built either by the families or local villagers in memory of slain, unsung soldiers. Many of these have been found in decrepit condition, in a very bad condition, often buried in the ground. So these Veer Galas, basically they tell us about an important personality, a place related, a thing built in memory of a great personality. And buildings include palaces, ministerial mansions, where ministers stayed, queen's quarter, Rani Vasa, where a queen stayed, and also houses of common people. All these things, they try to help us to understand past history. Material sources, they are also known as physical sources. Memorials, buildings, caves, sculptures, copper plates, forts, coins, and inscriptions. All these are, physical sources of history. All provide insight about that period. Looking at them, we come to know about the development of architecture. You know, buildings. Gateway of India, which was, constructed in memory of it was constructed to commemorate the visit of King of England, or Gharapuri, that is Elephanta caves, which are Buddhist monasteries built around 2005 years, 100 years back. Horniman Circle at Flora Fountain, dedicated to the martyrs of Maharashtra Samyukt movement. So these type of things, they play a very important role. The economic condition of that particular period, the quality of art, style of the building, construction, and people's standard of living in that particular period. Through these things, we get to know how rich, how prosperous, or how poor a particular kingdom was, a particular place was. This is how we understand history. Since ancient times, coins like kaudi, damdi, dhela, pai, paisa, ana, and rupee were used. Some local idioms or proverbs are based on coins. For example, a futki kaudi dedar nahi. Here, futki kaudi means the lowest bit of money. 16 ana such. That means 100% correct. Now see, if you go into history of coinage, futi kauri to kauri, kauri to damri, damri to dhela, dhela to pai, pai to paisa, paisa to rupaya. 256 damri was equal to 192 pai, and 128 dhela was equal to 64 paisa, and 16 ana was equal to 1 rupaya. This is how this calculation actually was during ancient time. And remember some phrases like, एक फूटी कौरी नहीं दूंगा, पाई पाई का हिसाब लूंगा, जान चली जाए पर दमरी ना जाए. These are some of the phrases which are related to this, this type of phrases. So this is how, in short, basically, this is how, use of coins were in ancient period. The coins made by different rulers using metals like gold, copper, silver are important source of history. From these coins we learn about the rulers, their period, governance, religious ideas. Now see, if you go into history of coinage, when Greeks came to India, they were the ones who introduced coins in India, because Greeks already were minting coins, and on one side name and picture of king, and on other side some religious personality was printed. This is how coins were minted in Greece. When they came to India, visited India, Alexander's time, they introduced minting of coin in India, and Indian rulers started minting coins. Large quantity of coins belonging to ancient time have been found in India. Personal details. Similarly, we also learn about financial transactions and economic conditions prevailing at that time. See, in ancient time, gold and silver coins were used. Gold and silver is a costly metal. Since India was a rich country, kingdoms were very rich. So those kings could, afford to mint gold and silver coins. As time passed, things changed. There was shortage of gold and silver. India being a poor country, now if you compare in modern time, basically we are using, steel coins. It's a token currency. So these coins, they make us understand economic condition during a particular king or during a particular period. We also see how far metallurgy had advanced in that period, that is, art of making metals. From the images of Ram Sita on the coins of Emperor Akbar or Shiva Parvati on coins of Hyder Ali, we see the religious coordination of those days. See, Ram Sita, that means religion played a very important role. Shiva Parvati during time of Akbar. And Hyder Ali. Religion was promoted. Rulers were Muslim, but coins with figures of Ram, Sita, Shiva, Parvati being, printed while minting. That brought about a unity between two different religious groups. The Peshwas used the Arabic or Persian language on their coins. This throws light on use of language in that period. That means the language whichever language was the court language. Coins were also minted with letters, numbers written either in Arabic or Persian or Sanskrit and so on. An inscription. Now, coinage. Sorry, I will just give you a little more about coinage. Coinage of India began anywhere between early 1st millennium BCE to the 6th century BCE and consisted mainly of copper and silver coins in its initial stage. The coins of this period were Karshapanas or Pana. A variety of earliest Indian coins, however, unlike those circulated in West Asia, were stamped bars of metal, suggesting that the innovation of stamp currency was added to a pre-existing form of token currency which had already been present in Janpadas and Mahajanpadas. Last year we have studied about Janpadas and Mahajanpadas. Kingdoms of the early historic India. The kingdoms that minted their own coins included Gandhara, Kuntal, Kuru, Panchal, Magad, Shakya, Surasena and Surashtra. The tradition of Indian coinage in the second millennium evolved with Indo-Islamic rule in India and the British Raj in the 19th century. See, cowrie shells were first used in India as commodity money. The Indus Valley civilization may have used metals of fixed weights such as silver for trade activities, which is evident from TK area of Mohenjo-daro from the late Harappan period, dated 1900 to 1800 BC or 1750 BC. So this is the remarkable similarities between punch mark coins symbols with those appearing in the Indus seals have also been highlighted. So these are some very important information on coinage. Since the Bronze Age, Ratti 0.11 or 0.12 gram or the weight of the Gunja seeds have been used as a base unit for the measurement of mass in Indus Valley civilization. So I do not want to go into much more detail. Early literature refers that there is evidence of countable units of precious metals being used for exchange from Vedic period onwards. A term Nishka, you remember last year, appears in this sense in the Rig Veda. Nishka was the currency which was used during Vedic period. So, Panini's grammar text indicates that these terms continued to be used into historical period, and that is how words like Satman or Nishka Satika or Nishka Shashrika were used during coinage. An inscription is a carving on stone or a wall. For example, inscriptions found in Brihadeshwar temples premises in Tanjavur. Many inscriptions of Chalukya, Rashtrakuta, Chola and Yadav kings have been found. An inscription is considered to be very important and reliable source of history. It helps us to understand features like language, script, social life of period. Inscriptions carved on sheets of copper are known as copper plates. Royal edicts, royal orders, verdicts are inscribed on copper plate. Now see, what is this edict? Royal edict. An edict is a decree or announcement of a law often associated with monarchism, king, but it can be under any official authority. Synonyms include dictum and pronouncement. Now, Telepinu, proclamation by Telepinu, king of Hittites, written 1550 BC. It helped archaeologists to construct a succession of Hittite kings. It also recounts Mursili, conquest of Babylon. Edicts of Ashoka by the Mauryan emperor. Ashoka during his rule from 272 BCE to 231 BCE. Edictum Perpetuum, an imperial revision of long-standing Praetor's Edict, a periodic document which first began under the late Roman Republic. circa 509 to 44 BC. So these are some of the edicts or royal orders which became popular. Now chaityas, viharas, temples, churches, mosques, agyares, dargahs, maqbaras, gurudwaras, monuments, sculptures, wells, minarets, villages, boundaries and gates, weapons, utensils, ornaments, clothes, decorative articles, toys, implements, musical instruments are all material sources of history. Now, written sources. We learn about significant historical event in the medieval period from sources like writing styles of scripts like Devanagari. Scripts like Devanagari, Arabic, Persian, Modi, etc. Now, Modi script. What is this Modi script? Modi, that is Marathi, Modi, pronunciation. Mudia is a script used to write the Marathi language, which is the primary language spoken in state of Maharashtra, India. There are multiple theories concerning its origin. The Modi script was used alongside the Devanagari script to write Marathi until the 20th century when Bal Bodh style of Devanagari script was promoted as the standard writing system of Marathi. This is how Modi script developed. And when we talk about this other script, Persian, was another popular script used in India. Arabic, with coming of Muslims, Arabic also became a very important language and it influenced the Indian society. Now, Bhurja Patras. Now, what is this Bhurja Patras? Betula utilis, the Himalayan birch, Bhojapatra, deciduous tree native to the western Himalayas, growing at elevation up to 450 meters, that is 14,800 feet. The Latin specific epithet utilis means useful and refers to many uses of different parts of the tree. The white paper like bark was used in ancient times for writing Sanskrit, scriptures and texts. Sorry. It is still used as paper for writing of sacred mantras, with the bark placed in an amulet and worn for protection. Selected varieties are used for landscaping throughout the world, even while some areas of its native habitat are being lost due to overuse of tree for firewood. Birch tree. So जिसको छाल बोलते हैं, it was used for writing. We can gather information about the food items, attire, conventions and rules of conduct of the people, festivals and about people's life, etc. from these sources. Sources of this type are called written sources of history. Now I am going to end it here. Just go through the chapter. Any difficulty, please let me know. make a notebook like how you all made last year, so that entire homework is done in that notebook. Take your studies seriously. Be present when we start Google Classroom. Stay home. Stay safe. Thank you.